Perfect. And
should all be on, but if you tap them, you don't hear them right away. It's because our soundboard doesn't want to turn them on. That's
Hi. Good afternoon, everybody. Before we get started, I'd like to give a round of applause to everyone that has presented today. The presentations have been wonderful, so if we could just give everybody before us a round of applause for the presentation. My name is Sara Telano. I am the branch chief for the Tech Engagement Office for the Research Lab. I always tell people that I think my office is one of the better ones in the research lab. I have the opportunity to work with people inside the fence and people outside the fence. I also have an opportunity to work with academia, and that is anywhere between K through 12 to graduate, postgraduate programs. Today, I wanted to really focus our presentation on collaboration. I think there's a lot to be said about collaboration from government, academia, and industry, and that is industry, whether you're a small business that is just trying to get your foot in the door, to whether you're a large industry that you're trying to focus on how do you sustain your innovation? Where do we go from here? Where do we go to the next level? Always thinking about what is next to what we do and what we do. So with that, I'm actually going to have my panels do their introduction. So we'll start with Dr. Lauren Hunt.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to spend some time with you this afternoon. My name is Lauren Hunt, and I work in the Air Force Research Laboratory. Specifically, I support the Space Force Accelerators program, which includes some specific programming called Hyperspace Challenge, Catalyst Space Accelerator, and although it has kind of a distinct name, we're really tied into the overall Tech Engagement Office. So I spend a lot of my time also working with Sara and our other community members to see how we can tie all of those pieces together.
Thank you, Lauren. Dr. Andreas Shmitt-Sody.
Also, thank you for having me here. My name is Andreas Shmitt-Sody. I'm the Deputy Chief Scientist for the Directed Energy Directorate at Air Force Research Laboratory. That's a mouthful. Our office basically oversees and advises in everything science-related inside and outside the fence regarding directed energy, including lasers, high-power microwaves, and also space situational awareness. And we are trying to be the link between our scientists, the Tech Engagement Office, and connecting them with academia, industry, and vice versa to help each other out to advance our technology.
Thank you. And Captain Joshua Garrison.
Hi, I'm Josh Garrison. I am currently the section chief of the Laser Systems Technology section, which is in the Laser Division, which is under the Directed Energy Directorate. I lead a team of about 12 researchers that either do research or technically advise contractors that do research for us.
Thank you so much. We'll start with Dr. Lauren. Can you tell us your introduction? You talked about the Hyperspace Challenge. Can you talk to us about what that is for anybody here that has never heard about that and how they could get connected to that program?
Absolutely. So Hyperspace Challenge is a partnership effort between EFRL and C&M Ingenuity. You can actually look the program up at hyperspacechallenge.com, and that'll be important if you want to kind of get a full sense of all the different topic areas we've covered. But at its core, Hyperspace Challenge looks for the opportunity to bring together small businesses, especially if they haven't had a lot of experience working with the government before, for startups and academia and brings them alongside government innovators. And Hyperspace Challenge then really focuses on facilitating interactions among those communities to help explore whether there are promising new technologies we haven't seen before that can address different problems that we bring forward. And so what type of problems? It's a wide range of them. All of our previous problem statements are on that main Hyperspace Challenge website, so you can get a feel for the variety, the scope of those. But the core of Hyperspace then is, again, allowing that opportunity for customer discovery. So on one hand, we're looking for potential solutions to problem areas, but also for the companies or the universities participating, it's really that opportunity to explore whether there is an additional market for a product that they're already developing and exploring on the commercial side.
Lauren, one of the key things to your program is you guys curate problems. What does that mean?
So fundamentally, we are looking for areas where there are problems, within the government, and it can be from a wide variety of groups where they have a specific pain point. And so it's not just saying we need technology X, Y, Z. It's really trying to get to the root of what is the problem space here so that we can then look to industry, academia to bring different solutions forward. And so it's that idea of spending a little bit of time looking to, again, what's at the heart of the problem that you really need solved, not just what is the technology you're after.
Perfect. So the idea behind it is to definitely connect that problem that we have, that need, with, just trying to phrase it. So we have a problem, we have a need, so that puts us closer to an actual real solution.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Andreas, from your research lab and where you sit right now, what do you think provides the most collaboration opportunities? Where do you see that we can merge what the government needs with what industry needs?
So we usually, from the directed energy point of view, to connect with industry, there's multiple tools that we try to employ. Of course, the SBIRs is one of the big ones. STTRs is small business and university collaborations together. And they usually address a pressing need that we have, a gap that our scientists cannot or identify that it's better to be solved with industry and academic partners. From the academic point of view, we have plenty of collaboration tools. It starts from bringing in students as summer interns, bringing in postdocs after they graduate, or then also educational partnership agreements that we can have with universities or with PIs, principal investigators themselves. Back to industry, there's definitely opportunities with BAA calls, and one, for example, that comes to mind is DEDR calls that are usually small-scale problems that are very specific and usually an open call that's standing for several years. Other than that, of course, it's always on the individual level too. So if you have ideas where you could help address a gap or provide input to advance our technology, I always, on the personal level, reach out to our office and we can connect you with the principal investigators or vice versa.
Right. So just to add to a little bit more to what Anders is saying, our office is actually one of the coolest offices because we actually do a lot of what we call non-funded agreements. And you may ask, well, what's the value of those? Well, the value of those is you can actually do commercial testing agreements where you can bring your technology, you can test it before it goes into the market. There's also CRADAs that we actually do. Again, that's a collaboration between your industry or our industry to be able to test materials, test anything that you may want to utilize utilize their facilities for. I know Andrews touched about the EPAs, those are the Education Partnership Agreements. Those are actually also open to nonprofit organizations, so they don't actually have to be universities. They could be high school, middle school, nonprofits across the state. A lot of times we actually donate some of the materials or some of the things that we have equipment. Other times we actually loan equipment as well through those EPAs, through those Education Partnership Agreements. So there's multiple ways that industry can connect with the lab. Of course, a lot of times the funding agreement is what we're looking for, but there are many tools that are available to industry, universities, and nonprofits to make the connection from outside the fence to inside the fence. So I just wanted to add a little bit to that for awareness for those who may be interested in those type of agreements available to you. So Josh, you are next as far as the questions goes. All right, Josh, can you just give us your thoughts on the importance of collaboration, and do you have any examples where you've been part of a collaboration team from industry or nonprofit or a university?
Yeah, so my program has had one of those that we've all talked about. We've had an EPA, we've had a CRADA, we have tons of SBIRs and STTRs. So there's a lot of examples I can give, but the benefits that these programs have is that first off, AFRL is in the business of manufacturing like a mass level of technology. We're in the business of research. So eventually we have to collaborate with industry. So they take our knowledge and manufacture it and then eventually sell it back to either the government or sell it to just the public in general. So that's the biggest reason why we have to partner with industry, and industry gets a benefit from that. They're getting our knowledge and then making money by going and then selling it. It's basically free knowledge at that point that they're getting from AFRO. Examples, the biggest example that comes to mind, or one that I actually researched right before I came here, is fiber laser technology. So fiber laser technology it was first invented in the 60s, if you don't know, and that technology started in academia, but it moved to industry. It was actually a research institute that was, I forget what the company stands for, but it was AO. And AO really researched fiber lasers, and eventually that technology made it to both the DoD for national security and also out to industry, like laser cutting technology and laser welding. All that uses fiber lasers now. And the funding that AO originally got to do that came from the Army. So, and if they didn't have that funding from the Army, that was just going to stall that technology. So when AO got that money from the Army, because the Army was interested in it, eventually that technology was developed by AO, and then they sold it, and now we have laser cutters, laser welders, and we use fiber lasers in national defense.
Thank you. So every laser that we're trying to use started with military, some sort of way? It's pretty cool.
The funding might have come.
Yeah, government purchase powered right there. So Lauren, back to you. I'm just going to ask you a question. A lot of times when we, especially since you and I work very closely together, since we hear about challenges with working with the government, can you talk a little bit about that?
You said challenges of working with the government or challenges with collaboration in general?
Challenges with collaboration in general, I would say.
I'm going to take that out just a little bit because I think since working with the Space Force Accelerators program, one of the things that I've really developed a really strong appreciation for, and in coming to events like this, is really understanding that all of the different communities that we're trying to connect, small business, startup, academia, government, everyone has different different needs. They're at different phases, in their lives, so to speak. Their timelines for needing money or being able to provide money, as one specific example, can be very different. And so the challenge, if I think about the big picture of challenges to collaboration, is really having that sense of understanding where is each person in their particular stage right now, and how do you provide programming or connections that actually meet each side's needs. So not have something lopsided where someone comes to an event and they feel like they gave everything but received nothing in return, but really being respectful of people's time. And so part of the ways that we are trying to do that specifically with hyperspace, and this is a continuous learning kind of activity, is number one, really bringing in diverse participants who create the programming. So the people who run Hyperspace Challenge have a wide variety of backgrounds. Some of them are entrepreneurs in their own right. We bring in that government perspective, and so when we are holding the events or trying to facilitate that customer discovery, we're really trying to ensure that in that moment, everyone is getting something out of it. And in an ideal case, maybe that's the next step in a relationship that leads to contracting and funding, but maybe it's as simple as, this was a really great conversation, I'm glad we had a chance to explore, but this is not the right fit on either side, right? Maybe for the small business or for the problem sponsor themselves. And so, I heard it at the lunch panel earlier today, being time lean. We're really trying to listen to what are the needs of the different communities we're trying to interface with, and how do we make sure that everything that we're bringing to the table is truly something that when they walk away from it, there's value add in that moment, not just, years down the road or months down the road kind of thing.
When again, we work very close together. Can you talk a little bit about some of reaching out and doing some outreach to investors? You guys recently had an event, is that correct?
So what I would say to that in general, give me the reference for specifically where you're headed there.
For a lot of times, companies come for governments for funding, but we're trying to reach out to investors as well. Can you talk a little bit about that, exposing companies to other inventors or investments outside of the government?
I think how I would answer that is, broadly speaking, what we're recognizing is that, it takes a lot of idea, and I'm speaking to a community who knows more about this than I do in a lot of ways. It takes a lot of effort to bring an idea to fruition, to get that product in a movable fashion, and what that really takes is bringing in a lot of different communities. So events that we're starting to circle around are looking at how can we bring in other communities, bringing in investment communities so that they have the same opportunity to potentially interact with the small businesses and startups. Also looking at the STEM components. So again, an earlier comment that I heard someone, or a question I heard someone ask is, would you even have the workforce here in New Mexico if you were to try and scale up? And so even from that angle, we're looking at how do we provide that holistic kind of collaboration space where each of these different communities that has a role to play in the success of a company, of a product, are able to take part in the process. And so, for example, if you look at our Hyperdrive Space Summit, which we had this past fall, that was an opportunity where we did just that, trying to bring in those different community voices so that they had not only an opportunity to share, here's what matters to me, here's what my community needs, but also here's what I can offer up in terms of my knowledge as you're trying to make your next step.
Thank you. And just same question for you, Andreas. Can you provide some examples as to, or best practices for collaboration that you have seen?
Yeah, I don't have. What's already been said is that AFRL, we're in the business of trying to find solutions, innovative solutions to applications to military. but we are not in the business of manufacturing. So that's, to bring in businesses early into that process is one of the biggest challenges for us in order to bridge the gap of the so-called valley of death that most technologies face. We built a lot of onesies, prototypes type gadgets, to some extent science projects, and we need industry to actually push it further to actually manufacturing and produce 4, 10, 100, whatever is needed for those. So the challenges, of course, is always, you all probably know, is money, time, and motivation, where money and motivation is very closely tied together. With budget cuts everywhere, that's definitely one of the biggest challenges for collaboration, time and distance, for sure. Even within AFRL, right? We have buildings 100 feet apart and nobody knows what each other is doing. So events like these are great for expanding the point of view from everyone, connecting people that are not in your field, because it takes a village to get technology out there. It's not one invention or one expertise. It takes everything from the scientists to the developer, to the manufacturer, to the finance person, contract person, everything to get something into as a product for us to the warfighter, or for you to your customers. So having all those teams assembled early is one of the biggest challenges, and not a lot of people think about it early in the life cycle of any invention or development.
Thank you. And Andreas, you mentioned something very interesting. As you know, a lot of times whenever you see a government solicitation, it just gives you 30 days, 30 days to get your teams ready, to get your proposal ready, to get it writing, to get it a specific way. Sometimes even just to understand what is this requirement, what are we being asked to do? So I used to be a contracting officer, actually. One of the things that I would always tell people is make sure you have some of the basic things ready to get you ready for that proposal, whether it's being registered on certain websites, whether it's having the team ready, whether it's you, from a business perspective, what are you trying to sell? What is the story that you're trying to sell? If you approach it from a story, you'll be able to deliver that in that requirement. So it's very important as you guys are preparing your solicitations, and you mentioned funding. Those are some of the things that can actually help you as a small business or even a large entity, is having the team ready to put something in writing, whether it's learning how to do the budget, or whether it's how do we really sell what we're trying to provide in that 20, 30-page requirement. We want to tell them how good we are, but we also want to be able to say that they understand what we're trying to do. So I think those are some of the things that would be very helpful. I'm going to then, our next question is going to be to Captain Gerritsen. You have worked with small business offices. Can you tell us a little bit about some of those first, when you start working with them, and some of those first interactions that you're having with the small businesses?
Yeah, so my program has, we had a lot of SBIRs at one point. And they started with the phase ones, which is the very basic. We have this problem and we like you to hammer it out for us. But there's usually no hardware at the end of a phase one. And then a phase two, there's usually a prototype, and then a phase three, there's usually something that is ready for manufacturing. We've had some success with SBIRs and some that have gotten to a phase two with the prototype and then kind of just stopped there. But that's really all they needed to go. We just wanted to hammer out the technology to that point. So let's see. Repeat the question.
Yeah, just your experience or of a small business industry.
Yeah. So my experience with SBI, small businesses, there's a certain advantage with working with small businesses that over larger companies. larger companies, as they grow larger, the bureaucracy also grows larger, and they get a little cumbersome to work with sometimes. And I've worked at the program office at the Air Force Life Cycle Management Center, which is the program office for the Air Force, and I worked with all of the larger companies, Lockheed, Boeing, Northrop, and when I got here and I saw that we were working with a lot of small businesses that I've never heard of before, I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting, and it turned out to be, in my view, a little bit better than working with the larger companies. Even though those larger companies can sometimes get certain talent and do things a certain way that smaller businesses can't, the smaller businesses are streamlined, and in one meeting, they can show you their design and you can give feedback, and they're already, during that meeting, working on redesigning it. And they just move faster and give a certain degree of innovation that larger companies don't give. And that's probably the key benefit to working with small businesses.
Thank you. Yeah, I think a lot of times, when you have the small businesses, the smaller the team, they're also very excited. There's something about being new, being fresh, being innovative, being having that first opportunity that I think changes sometimes the dynamics between a large organization and a small one. Not to say the large organization is bad, but it just provides a little bit of a different dynamics to it, and sometimes a lot more than 101 that you're looking for. Usually I'll actually say if there's any questions, because I'm looking at the time right now, and I know you guys have been here, but I know that there was a couple of interesting people here earlier asking questions, so I actually have a couple questions for them. Yeah, I do. I have a couple of questions for them, so I'm going to have you stand up for a second. And I actually wanted to ask you, because you had a very good question, actually. What do you see as a success for a collaboration from your end?
From scientists,
And,
I'm going
and,
to
then
go
we'll,
to
and then
hell.
we'll go down to panel. They were asking questions, so I figure it's fair that we ask questions back, right?
So collaboration is going to be a two-way street. The willingness and openness to engage and involve. I really like the question that you posed to her for the openness to engage other investors, because investment vehicles have to go beyond just the government kind of taking the brunt. So there has to be a public-private partnership. And that will be the fulcrum of any successful innovation ecosystem. Someone did ask me as to what a successful collaboration would look like in the context of innovation. There are 5 major components, if you ask me. I call that TTICC. Technology, talent, infrastructure, capital, and corporates. So when I say technology, we have amazing labs here, and universities are doing phenomenal job, New Mexico Tech, and there are so many of those pockets of innovation. But to me, I see that these are like pieces of the big jigsaw puzzle. They have to come together, not just as community, but also from a thought leadership, from a conceptual standpoint. So that just silos that Andreas was referring to, these silos outside AFRL, within the broader context, whether it's federal or state or local government, everyone has to come together. And that's how even we can add value as external investors. So to me, these are the essential building blocks or components so that we can have a win-win ecosystem for everyone.
All right, thank you. And who's your partner? You have to pass the mic to your partner, to Peter.
They ran away.
Did they really? Oh my God. Did they? Oh my God. So then I'm going to pick on somebody else that I know. Lisa, can I pick on you? Perfect. See, this is the benefit of having friends in the audience, right? It's like that lifeline.
Well, I mean, there's been so many successful collaborations in New Mexico, so I think one of the important things that I look for is the level of trust among the partners. And you have to build that relationship, and then that leads to a level of trust, which then a diverse team leads to innovation and then commercialization. So I would add trust to Abhi's wonderful list.
And like I like to add that Lisa actually, she works for CNMI, and through a partnership with New Mexico Tech, she and I also work together, and she is key in helping our scientists and engineers patent their technology. So she's amazing. She can provide a lot of resources, but in order for us to be successful to get things out into the commercial market, again, it's just that collaboration, that partnership. We recognize we can't do it all, so we rely on people with expertise to be able to bridge that gap for us. And again, Lisa is just amazing to work with. I just want to put a pitch to her and her team, because they're really great at what they do. Usually I'll say if there's any questions from the audience, you guys are more than welcome to. You can ask us any questions. You have a bit of a time left, or I can ask questions to the audience as well. There you go. See, brave guy over there. He doesn't want to be asked a question.
No, just following up the question on what makes for great collaborations. Steve Stringer, Los Alamos National Laboratory, and working with companies that are outside of the national security. So I think of Procter & Gamble, I think of Ernst & Young, the kinds of collaborations that we have. But what knits successful collaborations together on top of what you're saying, or really alongside of it, we all have projects that when we get together, we're excited and things are going well. That's great. How does it work when things go wrong? And so being able to solve problems together that you didn't expect to have, and trust is one of the big keys of it. But in the same sense that it takes a village to make things work, there has to be a team that understands the business, that understands the contracts, sometimes understands the law, whatever. But getting the right people around the table, I think, is something to organize in a collaboration. So having I'll just call it a comprehensive team that backs up the superstars who are the technology, the scientists who are inventing this stuff. That's what I found to be a key element in solving a couple of the problems that we've bumped into along the way. I just wanted to add and build onto that perspective.
Now, thank you. I welcome that. It's, you're right. You can't do it all. You can't. You need to rely on everybody to do it, whether it's government, industry, city, nonprofits, organizations, thinking of what is the end, what is the impact, what is the value of what we're trying to achieve. So I think your comment is very valid, and it's very true. It really brings it together to what we're trying to accomplish. So I could be the timekeeper. I could keep talking. So just, are there any other questions that you may have? We're good? All right. Thanks, everybody, for your time again. Thanks for volunteering for your questions.
Well, thank you to Sara and a wonderful panel. That was really great. So we're at the closing remarks now. So it's been a terrific day. And our first speaker for some closing remarks is Brian Birk with Sun Mountain Capital. Brian has been in his position for many years. We've worked together, and he's also an entrepreneur and investor, a terrific background, which I'm not going to read the whole thing because I want to give the time to him. Thank you, Brian.
Hi, thank you very much. Thank you, Lisa. I just want to say I really appreciate being given the opportunity to give the closing remarks. It's really an honor, and I think I was asked to give these closing remarks because I've had such a long experience in trying to commercialize technology and helping entrepreneurs in New Mexico. And I really, after seeing what's going on today, I want to focus on the fact that there's never been a better time to be an entrepreneur in New Mexico. And I can say that because, we started Sun Mountain Capital back in 2006. We had, we were a venture capital firm that decided to locate in Santa Fe. Our focus was on deep technology states and underserved geographies. And back then, it was really a pretty radical idea, right? I mean, rewind the clock 17 years, and venture capital was even more focused in California and New York. But today, I look around the room, and I look at the progress that's been made, and it's really been dramatic. And I mean, very impressive. And I think to myself, maybe it wasn't such a radical idea, right? When you see how much and how far we've come. Just a couple statistics for you. In 2006, as best as I can recollect, there were 4 venture capital funds operating in the state of New Mexico. Today, we have over 15, right? All focused on the state of New Mexico. In 2006, I remember we had a really, really big funding year where we hit $40 million of capital invested. That was a huge number, never seen before in the state. And today, we have individual companies who are raising $30 and $40 million around. In fact, an average year is in the up in the $120, $130, $150 million, right? The progress is just unbelievable, and I think that progress is really driven by the fact that there has been such a concerted effort to invest into the state, into the entrepreneurial ecosystem, right? And really, in New Mexico, there are 3 things that I look at and I'm impressed with. The first is the investment in human capital and deal flow infrastructure. The second is the experience that resides in this room. And the third is really the investment capital that's been here in the state and will soon accelerate pretty dramatically. Let me just spend a minute and talk about the human capital side and the deal flow infrastructure. This is a classic way to help introduce the thought of being an entrepreneur into curriculums, training programs, events like this. And not only the soft skills aspect of it, but also the getting access to lab resources, to technical equipment, getting technical expertise to really help a startup. And what Lisa and the Rainforest have accomplished here is really impressive. And I mean, also a shout out to Patricia Knighton and Mariah, because these are the things that are driving all the entrepreneurs up here. And the deal flow quality that we were seeing today in comparison to 10 or 15 years ago is an order of magnitude better. That's reflected in the higher deal flow volumes, the amazing number of venture capital funds that are here, and finding interesting companies to invest in the state, right? And all this is needed to launch successful companies, not just the hardcore tech that was here, when I showed up. Secondly, I think what's been really a dramatic change is we really have the benefit of experience, right? When in 2006, you would come to an event and there was no one who had been really through the trials and tribulations of being an entrepreneur. And today, when I look around the room, I see a number of successful entrepreneurs. So when I look at Drew Tulchin, right, and his experience at Meow Wolf and what he's done with the Angels, or Carlos Perea, what he did with Myox and his current venture, I look at them and I go, for every entrepreneur in here, you should find those guys and offer to have a beer with them, or maybe better, go for a mountain bike ride, right, and really pick their brain. Again, years ago, we didn't have that. And finally, I look at the investment capital, right, that's here and will be coming here shortly. The State Investment Council has been a steadfast supporter. I mean, they've invested, hundreds of millions of dollars into venture capital funds and into companies here in the state. But alongside of them, we see new programs ramping up that'll make a dramatic difference, like SSBCI, right? $60 million into early stage venture in New Mexico. The New Mexico Finance Authority has a $35 million venture capital program that will also be focused on New Mexico startups. So when I look around at the state, I say, cutting edge technology has always been here, right? We look at the research universities, the labs, AFRL. I mean, it's really a truly impressive collection of intellectual capital. We manage investment programs in a number of other states and also in other countries. And I can tell you, New Mexico is gifted to have this kind of intellectual capital at our fingertips. And that cutting edge technology really is the foundation for a robust entrepreneurial economy, right? You need to have that. But let me tell you, it's necessary but not sufficient, right? In addition to that, you need to have all the things that we just talked about, right? And in New Mexico now, it's different because we have the deal flow infrastructure. We have the training and support. We have experienced entrepreneurs around the table, and we have not just capital, but more capital flowing into the state. So I look around and I say all the ingredients are in place, right? And there's never been a better time to be an entrepreneur in New Mexico than today. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Brian, and our thanks to Brian and Sun Mountain Capital for all of their efforts in growing our entrepreneurial ecosystem over these many years, too. Our final speaker is Melinda Allen. Melinda is the president and CEO of the New Mexico Partnership. She is an experienced economic developer in New Mexico, and she joined the New Mexico Partnership in 2017. So this is complementary to what many of us are working on with the Grow Your Own strategy. So welcome, Melinda, and thank you for closing our event today.
Well, thanks, Lisa, and thank you for everyone for being here. Such a great event, all the things that I was able to listen into, so many wonderful things that are happening in New Mexico. And that's what kind of the New Mexico Partnership gets excited about, is telling the good news and all the wonderful reasons why companies need to come to New Mexico. If you're not familiar with who the New Mexico Partnership is, we are the state's business marketing and recruiting arm. What that means is we go out all over the world trying to recruit businesses to come into the state of New Mexico. And they always ask, what does your innovative ecosystem look like? And it's rooms like this. This is the ecosystem that helps us sell New Mexico. We meet with companies of all sizes that are in the early startup phase, that are trying to do a prototype, that are very well established. And having that collaborative effort and that ecosystem to plug them into is essential and key for us to be able to attract businesses. One example I can think of, we met with a company out of Spain in the aerospace industry. They wanted to do something in the United States. We connected them with Hyperspace Challenge, they participated, and now they're talking about putting a headquarters in New Mexico. This is how we work together to attract the industry, to attract more innovation, to attract more businesses to the state of New Mexico. The New Mexico Partnership works hand in hand with the Economic Development Department, which you heard from earlier this morning. We are kind of joined at the hip. We help attract and run the projects. And then we act as that umbrella organization for all of the local communities throughout the entire state of New Mexico. So when a company comes in, we're their single point of contact. They call us for information on labor, on universities, on research, on assistance, on finding the perfect site, on finding connections and incentives and anything else that they might need to be able to be successfully located in the state of New Mexico. We act as that liaison, bridge, umbrella, middleman, whatever you want to call it. We act as that function for companies as they come into the state. We're a small staff. We have a staff of 5, but we bring in about 60 or 70. This year it's almost 80 new projects every year. And these are new project leads that we're trying to win in the state of New Mexico that we work with everyone to try to accomplish. Again, I think, because we're almost out of time and I see the goodies are laid out and I know everyone wants to get to that. We are so excited for all of the growth and development that's been happening in this innovative space. It is something that helps us be able to promote New Mexico. You know, a lot of what we do is marketing based. So the more good news stories we can tell, the better. If you have a good news story, if you've just gotten a patent, if you're ready to launch new Series A funding, if you're ready to launch a new product, let us know. Let us help spread the word through all of our contacts to help promote you, help promote New Mexico. Let's work together and collaborate to really tell the good story of why New Mexico is such a great place to come, to do business, to manufacture a product, to design a new product, to make something new, make something different. New Mexico is where you can get it done. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll let you guys go and enjoy all the goodies.
Thank you all for being here today, and I would just like to take a moment and thank all the partners that work together. And then I'd like to thank my staff, if they could stand. Okay, we have reception now, so enjoy some desserts and wine and beer, and we look forward to continued networking. Thank you.